our organization, Workers' Unity of Brazil, considers that political conditions in the world are worsening towards the worst political crisis of the whole capitalist history. All of the laws of capitalism that were discovered by Karl Marx and written in a very well-known book, Das Kapital, today are not softened. They are even worse, and they are at the edge. So at this time, for example, you see that at this time you see that the law for getting the best profits as whatever cost it is possible to, it is so very hard that today it is almost impossible for any big multinational company to get profits for investing in production. So they direct most of their investment for financial speculation activities. Nowadays, you see that derivatives, financial derivatives, represent more or less 10 times the worldwide gross product. Capitalism got a so huge collapse, economical collapse, in 2008. And that crisis was not possible to be closed. And the whole world is going to an even bigger crisis. The North American imperialism is more or less like a shadow in comparison that we saw after the Second World War, when the United States dominated almost the whole planet with the exception of the ex-Soviet Union. Very hard. And after the Marshall Plan, they were able to control the whole world by financial and military means. Nowadays, there are more or less 900 army bases where they spend billions of dollars. And specifically at the South China Sea and the region, they directed almost half of the whole Pentagon budget to control the expansion of the Chinese. The contradictions of the imperialism became harder. And nowadays you have that the Americans, they are even trying to impose sanctions against the United Kingdom. They have very big contradictions against a new bloc that was formed between China and Russia. And this kind of contradictions that led to a lot of defeats in most of the parts of the world, made that the United States concentrated in Latin America, that is considered its own backyard, in order to strengthen itself and then try to go to a worldwide war. Why? Because the capitalism is going to a so very big worldwide capitalist crisis, and they don't have any policy in order to control it, in order to derive it, because it is so very bad indebted, and at the same time it doesn't have any social alternative. So the alternative for confronting and containing the capitalist crisis is to go for a war, because in this way it is going to be possible to control the workers' movement, that nowadays it is more or less like controlled But during a so very big crisis, the workers tends to stand up and tends to fight. Under this vision, we see a huge aggression against Venezuela in South America. Venezuela nowadays is the iceberg point of a political worldwide crisis. The United States is trying to to build up an invasion of the country, but that is not easy. Donald Trump is almost as acting as a zombie nowadays. He doesn't know whatever he needs to do. So at this time, what we see, Donald Trump is almost to be impeached. The same thing that is happening in Brazil with Bolsonaro government. Why? Because they are not able to produce exit to the capitalist crisis. Thing is, in Brazil, the vice president, the General Hamilton Mourão, is not as less fascist as Bolsonaro. Thing is, he's more strategist, and he is very linked to the intelligence services, to the General Augusto Heleno that controls the espionage services. And also, nowadays in Brazil, you have 44 generals and high army officials that controls 23 strategical areas in the government. This is linked to the American hybrid war against South America. And it is focused in imposing into Brazil a Pinochet, fascist dictatorship in order to control the development of the revolutionary tendencies that they are growing so fast. And at the same time, they are trying to control the region through this war, because a war to Venezuela would mean to impose a martial act, and at the same time to create or to control any kind of confrontation against the war by means of military judges. Anyone that dares to protest against the war, against the attack, they are facing a martial court. They could go to whole life prison sentences, and at the same time they could be sent to the front to pass through a martial court. So this is the way the American imperialism is trying to control the crisis. And at the same time, this crisis in Venezuela means that the American imperialism is trying to expel the Russians and the Chinese from Venezuela. The Chinese are the biggest owers of the Venezuelan debt all over the world. It is more or less $65 billion. And that is controlled through the oil and gas Venezuelan reserves. And the Russians, they have the concessions of several oil fields. So if they are expelled from Venezuela, they are going to lose all of their expansion through all over South America at least, or even Latin America and the Caribbean Sea. And what you can see in the region is that the Chinese, they even have a military base to the south of Argentina. That was an agreement with Cristina Kirchner government. And the Americans want to expel that base too. So they are preparing for a worldwide war in another parts of the continent. Because at this time, they are very afraid of confronting Russia and China in the South Pacific Asia region or the Middle East. So this is very dangerous for mankind and for the workers, because the Americans are more or less like, they represent, let's say, like an old lion that was wounded. It doesn't mean he is less dangerous than a real young lion. It is old, but it is even more dangerous. So for us, the revolutionaries, what we have as the main task for this period of time, at this stage, is to call everybody, the revolutionaries in the world, and the masses, to give the best solidarity as possible to Venezuelan people against the military aggression and the war. Especially in Latin America, any war against Venezuela is a war against the whole region and the peoples of Latin America. And if the Americans succeed in those evil plans, they will get stronger in order to lead the whole world to the third worldwide war. Of course, it doesn't mean that those plans are going to succeed. What we have now is that any plan in society and in life, it has two sides of the coins. It can succeed, and at the same time, it can defeat it. Venezuela can be a new Vietnam for the American imperialism. And our task is to work very hard in order to make Venezuela a new Vietnam for the American imperialism. So we need to fight for a anti-imperialistic aggression against Venezuela and against any country in Latin America. And we call the revolutionaries and the masses and the workers to be solidar about the Latin America people.